is a new crisis. This is a world crisis that's brewing, and it has everything to do with the U.S. debt. I don't know if you've heard, but it's reached, are you ready for this number? Because it's an outstanding number. $34 trillion. $34 trillion. That's the U.S. debt. Look at what just happened, by the way, in the Japanese stock market.
Some developing news this morning, and all eyes will be on Wall Street this morning. Here's the deal. Japan's stock market is taking a hard fall right now, experiencing its worst day slump in nearly 40 years, dropping by nearly 12%.
So let me tell you about how we got to this point, all right? The U.S. debt has been compounding due to the fact that we spend way more than we take in. Simple, right? So how do we make up the difference? We borrow money by giving people essentially bonds. And that is why there is a real concern that this U.S. debt bubble is about to burst. And when it does, it's going to have a huge global implication. Why? Because if we can't pay down our debt, the countries who've lent us this money by buying these bonds will also go under. And we're talking about a lot of money and a lot of countries. And most of the money, by the way, and this is interesting, most of the money comes from our top allies around the world. So now think in terms of, the position of the different countries in the world. Who are these top allies, right? I mean, think about this. Our borrowing here in the United States now stands at 130% of our GDP. Imagine if you ran your household budget that way. Within 20 years, it's expected to be 250% of our GDP. Imagine owing 250% of what you have. You'd be broke or going broke. Now, why is that global threat, right? What's the rest of the world have to do with the U.S. not being able to perhaps pay its bills or being in debt? Well, who do you think we owe most of that money to that we may at some point here, maybe even soon, not be able to pay back? Our allies, who have bought $7.6 trillion of our debt. $7.6 trillion of our debt. Let me show you what we're talking about here. The one we owe the most to. Oh, what a coincidence. Japan, $1 trillion. Now you know why their stock market is crashing in part. The UK, they own $716 billion of our debt. Luxembourg accounts for $371 billion. Canada, who catches our cold when we sneeze, they own $321 billion of our debt. See, they all thought the U.S. was a good investment, but now they're having second thoughts. And they're all crucial allies, by the way. Look at Japan. Japan is the U.S. proxy in Asia. The U.K., Canada, that's NATO, right? So get me back on camera if you can, Vic. How did the U.S. get into this predicament, right? Short answer, defense spending for endless wars that we did not win, which we may now have to rethink. I pulled together I looked for this and found it for you because I wanted to share this with you. I pulled the 2023 numbers around, the defense numbers, right? Let me show them to you. Last year, the U.S. spent $916 billion on national defense. That's almost $1 trillion on defense. That is more than the next 9 countries combined. That is about 1/6 of the federal budget. And it accounts for 40% of all global military spending. Interest alone that we're going to be paying as a result of that, which I just shared with you, by just paying down the debt on that alone, it's going to be about $6.5 trillion in 2050. $6.5 trillion in interest payments. If you're a U.S. taxpayer, which I am, by the way, this is my pocket that they're reaching into right here. I mean, that's coming out of us. And it's just not sustainable. It truly is about to blow.